Hey guys, so kind of a special video today. As you're probably aware, and if you're looking at this after the fact, this video, hopefully unless YouTube explodes or my internet goes down, was uploaded on March 26, 2015. And the significance of today is that 10 years ago, Doctor Who came back from, well, somewhat of a long hiatus, we could say. Now, I think one thing I should clarify, I don't really, at least not anymore, I don't refer to Doctor Who since the comeback as New Who, because I really just consider it a continuation of the same series, which is what it is. It had just changed stylistically when it came back, because, well, obviously, except for a TV movie, it had been 16 years. But anyway, so yeah, so March 26, 2005, and I'm actually completely horrified to find out, or just come to the realization that that was 10 years ago. I think one thing I'll notice, the older you get, the faster time seems to kind of speed by, and yeah, 10 years ago seems like it was, I don't know, 2 years ago. But yeah, and I didn't actually, because I'm in Canada, I didn't see the first episode on the 26th. We actually got the new shows, or Doctor Who, at least the first season, about a week and a half after it was aired in the UK, or it would have been, I think it was Tuesday nights of the week after. So what is that, like 9 days? I'm just getting into I guess territory. It's a little bit too specific here, but yeah. So anyways, so I guess that would be, if I saw it then, that would have been what, March. Or actually, no, it would have been about April 4th, I think, is when I saw it. But yeah, I'm getting way off track here. But anyway, so Doctor Who itself premiered in the UK on March 26, 2005. And when I initially saw it, first off, I had been skeptical that the show was ever going to come back, because we've been hearing about it for years. And as much as I like Paul McGann, and I think he's a great Doctor, and I think he's Sean in Big Finish, the 96 movie, just because of the way it was handled, especially by Fox with the scheduling, it was kind of a disaster and didn't actually go beyond the movie, and there's no series made. And we'd been hearing, I think, really since 2 years after the show went off the air, I think as early as 1991, they were talking about bringing it back, and we never figured what happened. But it was announced in November 2003 that the show was returning for Doctor Who's 40th anniversary. And the start date was March 2005. So I'm like, yay, it's coming back in a year and a half. Awesome. But over the intervening year and a half is when I really became a Doctor Who fan again. Also, I kind of picked it up a little bit because the DVDs have been coming out. And in early 2005, I was pretty much obsessed with it before it came back. And I remember seeing the first episode. And one thing that struck me, and people have really noted this after the fact, but one thing that struck me immediately when it came back was stylistically, even though the show has definitely now changed, stylistically it was so close to Survival from 1989, which was the last episode of the original 26-year run, and the last full episode was Sylvester McCoy's Doctor Who number 7. But it had the same feel, you know, it's a poor area, council house area. I think Ace and Rose have similar characteristics, although I liked Ace. I've kind of come to dislike Rose over the years, which I've covered in other videos, and at some point I'm going to do something in detail as to why specifically I really don't like Rose, and it's the same reason that I think a lot of people don't like Rose. But yeah, that's not really the place for this video. Like I said, I'm going to do a separate one. I'm actually going to do a semi-relaunch as to how I'm doing these videos anyway. Probably this coming May, and I'm going to do a series of Doctor Who rants, because, you know, I want to do something a little bit different than what I've done over the years, which was the DVD reviews. So you'll be seeing those come up, and stylistically they're going to be very different from videos that I've done in the past, just because after 7-8 years, however how long this channel's been around, I want to change things up a little bit. But anyway, so yeah, so you'll hear all about Rose at some point in the next 2 months. But anyway, so back to the show. So immediately what you see is, you know, it's very similar to 1989. And to be honest, there were things, you know, I think we sometimes look back on it with rose-colored glasses, and some people will call the Eccleston Tennant years, maybe it's definitely the Tennant years, kind of the golden age of Doctor Who, which they were awesome, but there were things that miffed a lot of people about it. I think some of it was the humor, the burping garbage can probably being or garbage bin being the main example, although I can see why that was done. Because in order to make the show successful, it had to be done, or it had to be made for all ages. And well, adults will probably find that stupid and wonder why it's there. It's something that the kids would enjoy. So, and the show's still been around for 10 years, so obviously that some of that original marketing or whatever you want to call it worked. I could have done without the love triangle that comes the final year, and we've seen recently that we don't need to have that in Doctor Who, so that was kind of a mistake, but that's for another video altogether. But anyway, so yeah, so we see the show come back, awesome comeback, awesome episode, a little bit of cheesiness. I've mentioned in my Series 1 Revisited video, in terms of the way it looked, it does look a little cheap, especially compared to later seasons, and that really doesn't have anything to do other than the fact that they were still using digital beta cams at the time. And for later seasons, when Tennant comes in, they'd gotten a little bit better with color correction, and it did not look as cheap. That's the difference, and you'll notice that right away, especially if you're just coming off Capaldi's season and you go back to Rose. You're going to see kind of that cheap look. Not that, it's necessarily, it's not bad. It's just, it visually, it looks very different 10 years ago to what it does now. And a lot of that has to do, well, now it's shot in high definition. Like the way it's shot is completely different. Anyway, so yeah, so I think another thing is to reflect on, where the show has been in 10 years. And I think a good comparison is not many shows, very few last 10 years, and those that do last 10 years or close to 10 years, especially now, are really a shadow of their former selves. I'm just kind of looking at sort of DVDs I've got in here of shows that I've enjoyed. We recently found out this week that The X-Files is coming back, which is awesome. And I've been watching some of the older episodes, and I've actually been watching season 9 of The X-Files, so almost 10 years. And I didn't really mind it that much at the time, but I've been watching, well, a mix of season 1 and season 9, oddly, the beginning, and yeah, the show was not what it was by the time it finished. You only had one original character part-time. I think another example of a show that I absolutely loved for the first 7 years was House, and it was awesome during the first 3, and the first 7 were pretty good. But House went on for one season too long, and it just degenerated, and I just find that the last season was absolutely awful. And that's another example. Shows lose their luster, they keep doing the same things, but to Hugh Laurie's credit, he actually left House, or he was the one who decided to end it, which I think is commendable, because this is Fox, and considering how long they've been dragging on The Simpsons and a few other shows, it could still be on the air now, and now it would be beyond dreadful. So yeah, but Doctor Who is a little bit different. Just the nature of the show means that it is completely re-envisioned every few years. And if you look at it, the show had, I'm not talking about a reboot in terms of plotline. There was continuation, but in every other way, there was a complete reboot in 2010, just after just 5 years. You have literally everything change. You had the production team change. RTD's gone. Stephen Moffat comes in. You have a new Doctor. You have a new companion. You have a new TARDIS. You have a new theme, or new version of the theme song, although that was the only thing that carried over Marie Gould. But pretty much, other than Gould and a few members of the effects crew, there really almost nothing carried over from the Tennant years. And I think you can look at Tennant and Eccleston as kind of just one big long run, because it was kind of a compressed 4-year thing. The only thing that happened really was the Doctor changed partway through. But aside from the Doctor, the threads stayed the same all the way through. But we have a complete reboot in 2005. The show is, or 2010. The show is refreshed again, almost to the point that it was in 2005. Stylistically, it's very different. And then we see if we look at the way it is right now, it is a continuation of the 2010 reboot, but completely different once again, even though we do have a companion carryover. But I think what I'm getting at right here is when we're looking at 10 years since Doctor Who came back, comparing Series 1 to Series 8, other than the fact that it features the Doctor in a police box, there is almost nothing in common stylistically between the two shows, which really, and I think that attests to the success of 2005, where they started this thing that is forever changing. You compare Rose to, say, something like, well, take pretty much anything from Series 8, and there's just like it's completely different, which is cool. And I think that's why the show will persist. And the one thing I've been hanging over fans' heads was the 13 generation thing, which I think they probably could have handled that a little bit better, but at least that's been set aside. But anyways, yeah, so it's just a time to reflect. It's been 10 years of a great show. And it's continually improved, but there have also been missteps, and you'd expect that with any show that's been around for a while. In this case, 51 years, well, 51 and a half now, I guess, or almost, or however the math works out, or even a show that that's had a 10-year run since Doctor Who came back. There have been some horrible episodes. Dr. Widow in the Wardrobe is one. Fear Her was awful. Most people will argue that almost the entirety of Series 6 was somewhat problematic, and I haven't done my revisited video on that yet, but Series 6 really was not very good. It had its moments, but I think a lot of us were fearing that we were going to see a downward spiral, and it's the new show, or the return version of Doctor Who, almost, for some of us, almost seemed like it wasn't going to make it to 10 years. Series 6 was not good. It was split off. In Series 7, we see essentially the show being cut down to 5 new episodes in 2012. And Series 7A really wasn't much better than Series 6. And so, I'm not saying that it's been great, the whole run. There have been down points. But I think as soon as Series 7B comes back, we see it kind of a little mini reboot. And I think that, even technically halfway through a season, we see a new costume for the Doctor. We see, once again, a new TARDIS, a new theme song, kind of like a mini reboot. Then that carried through to Capaldi, which I think is the strongest the show's ever been. And that's the testament of 2005. Now, 10 years later, the show, I think, is at what I would call its new golden age. It's almost reached the peaks of the Tom Baker years, or really the Pertwee and Tom Baker. And if you look at the original run, the show started in '63, but it really caught fire. It had some popularity at the beginning, but it had been slowly going downhill. And I loved the Troughton years, but the performance and the ratings were not necessarily great closer to the end. We see a brilliant Doctor, like they're all brilliant, but we see John Pertwee come in. The show goes up and continues steadily. And then in 1974, so 11 years after the show originally premiered, we have Tom Baker cast as the Doctor, and the show just skyrockets. And in some ways, I think, that's what we're seeing right now. It's because of the nature of the show. It's always been great, but it took it 10 years for it to really catapult. And, I'm really hoping that Capaldi does. I know their estimates as to how long he's going to be, but I think 5 years would be a good run for him. Because I don't really think that they want to let this opportunity go. They have what is rapidly, in my opinion, becoming the best Doctor. I think he's almost at the level, we'll probably see after another year, but I think he's almost at the level where he's going to surpass Tom Baker as the best Doctor in the role. I think he is better. I like David Tennant, but I think he is better than David Tennant. And I've said, even though a lot of people disagree with me, Colin Baker has always been my favorite Doctor, based largely off The Big Finish, version of Doctor Number Six. But Capaldi could easily become my favorite Doctor as well, depending on how things go. He's ranked number 2 right now. So anyways, yeah, this video is rambling, and I do tend these videos largely because I don't have much of a plan when I do these Doctor Who videos. I just kind of get up and talk, so that's why they're rambling. But yeah, I just wanted to come in and make a short video. Well, I guess it's over 50 minutes now, so not that short. But a video just celebrating this day, and yeah, I'm probably going to watch Rose later on today because it's not technically my day off. I'm just working from home, so kind of my day off. So I'm going to finish my work, and then I'm going to watch Rose. So awesome. So thank you for watching, everyone. And as always, have a great day.